Hey everyone. So, are you a latchkey kid? I know for many of us, we were told to be the responsible one and not to complain. That's what my parents told me anyway. And I think as a result of all that, being the responsible one, we had a hard time saying no to others. So when we became adults, we end up helping friends, helping aging parents, taking care of the kids, and meeting deadlines at work. And for a lot of us, this became quite overwhelming because we all want to be people pleasers. We became more stressed. Some of us developed anxiety. And then, I don't know if you call one of these moments, but one day the phone rings and you look at the display and it's your parents calling, your mom or your dad. And suddenly you start to get this nervous, uneasy feeling. The one that you used to get when you feel like you're getting in trouble when you were a kid. So you pick up the call and you hear that familiar voice say, "Hey, I have this problem with my cell bill or something else. Can you help me take care of it?" And you say, "Sure, Dad or Mom, but I'll have to wait because I'm busy right now." Then you start to hear this split second of uneasy silence. And they respond by saying, "Okay, but please take care of it right away." Now, you can hear the disappointment in their voice. And that voice that's saying, "Well, you would do it right away if you cared about me, but obviously you don't care about me, so you're not taking care of it right away." And everything seems like it's an emergency, an urgent matter. And that voice, starts to remind you, and their disappointment starts to remind you that that you have disappointed them again. And you begin to feel guilty. And that guilt becomes so overwhelming that you feel like you have to do something to, how should I say, make things better between between both you and your parents. So I want to find out how many of you can relate to this. I obviously did. I spent many years feeling guilty when my parents had a request and I didn't follow through with it. So in today's video, I want to share my experience on setting boundaries with my aging parents and how that has brought great peace to my life. Now, many of you are over 50 now or close to it. And as Gen Xers, we spent our entire lives dealing with a parent who has been emotionally immature or emotionally distant with us. And they always expected us to have to be at their beck and call all the time when they need something. Meanwhile, when we were kids, when we needed them, they weren't emotionally available. But here's the problem that people don't tell you about. And as Gen Xers entering our 50s, many of us feel quite exhausted and overwhelmed. We are considered the sandwich generation because we're taking care of aging parents. Plus, many of us have kids who are staying at home longer because the cost of living is so high. And having taken into account all this, the financial costs has cost many of us our retirement savings. And I've read in the news, actually, that many Gen Xers will not be able to retire at 65 anymore. And on top of that, we're finding ourselves being aged out of the workforce. And quite frankly, many of us are probably tired of going through this corporate grind and longing for a new purpose in life. And so it's not surprising that many of us Gen Xers are feeling very burnt out. I guess the feeling I felt many years ago was, feeling like dropping out dropping everything and just disappearing, to an island somewhere where no one can find you and bother you. So how do we regain control of your life and end this madness? I know for me, I can only say what I have done, and some of this applies to you, and maybe some of this doesn't. But for me to create this healthy boundaries with my parents and to other people as well, is I start to say no without apologizing or feeling guilt. I know for some friends of mine, they had trouble saying no to people that needed help financially, right? And if you decide to do that, just make sure that you're not putting yourself at financial risk in doing so. I know for myself, I had a friend that wanted me to give him things for free during COVID when my business was shut down. And I told him no. And he was very upset with me and didn't talk to me. Started to tell my other friends that he was upset because I didn't give him things for free. And normally in the past, I feel quite guilty because I love to help everybody. But I come to realize that all I was just doing is putting more stress in my life and causing me to be miserable. So I told him no, and I have no regrets doing it. He no longer speaks to me, but it's made me realize that perhaps that he wasn't really a friend in the first place. So that was the first thing I did, was learning how to say no. And it's one of the most powerful things that you can do, and probably one that will take a lot of the burden off your shoulders. Now, another thing that I did to set up healthy boundaries with my parents was be confident and assertive in sharing your opinion, because growing up for me, my opinion wasn't valued. And I think for many of us Gen Xers, we can understand and relate to that because we were told to be, seen but not heard. And, if I always listen to my parents' advice to be respectful, but the ultimate decision is up to me or you. And I remember my parents were very adamant on me getting married at the in my late 20s and pushing for that. So I kind of just sucked it up, even though sometimes I didn't feel like I appreciate the pressure from them. And they were very adamant after I got married in my wife and I having kids. And I wasn't so sure about it because of just the things that I experienced growing up. And it was a very negative experience. So I didn't want to go through all that with my kids. And they were pushing me and it got the pressure started getting worse and worse as I started to approach 35. And finally, I told them that that we weren't going to have kids, and they were disappointed. But in the end, there was nothing they could do about it. And at first, I felt, I guess, guilty for not relenting to their demands. But in the end, I felt such a sense of relief that I lifted off my shoulders, and no regrets at all in my decision. And I was glad that I put my foot down finally, and I stayed true to my values. The other thing that I did to set up healthy boundaries was I tend not to overshare my problems. Problems with my significant other, or problems with for friends and stuff like that. I don't have kids, but the ones that do, I always suggest not sharing problems that you have with your kids as well, because they tend to get involved and with stuff they don't agree with. And I think, in my opinion, it should be an internal family matter that should be settled between yourself and and the people around you in your immediate family until you're ready to share with your parents, of course. And the fourth thing that I did was I made sure that I was clear about my values as well. And you can help your parents out, but be sure that it works for you as well, that you're not causing yourself more stress. I mean, there's so many things that us Gen Xers take on now with in terms of family responsibility and so forth, and the pressure of work. All adds to it, and you want to make sure that you are living your life as well, and you're not in constant misery every day. The one thing, one story I want to share with this about, having them understand your values is one time, for example, a number of years ago, I was heading back to visit my family, and my brother just bought his new house, and he said, "Well, why don't you come stay with me while you're here?" And I did. So I stayed with him, but not realizing that my mom was very hurt and upset. And I found this out a few days later from my father. And he said, "Well, Mom's very upset with you. She doesn't understand why you don't want to stay at her house," thinking that it was a complete disrespect and insult. And I was surprised by all this. But the reason why I stayed at my brother's place was because I needed an internet connection, and my parents didn't have that. They had a dial-up connection still. And I can do work with that. So I had to explain to them that, hey, I need the internet connection to do my work. And then after that, it was okay. But, it's these things that get misinterpreted. So you have to be very clear when you were setting these boundaries up. And unfortunately for me at the time, I didn't realize that there was going to be an issue. And one of the biggest things I start to ask myself when I start to set up these healthy boundaries is why did I always have to feel like the guilty one, like I was doing something wrong? Because every time I did that, it just made me feel more miserable, and I felt like I was being cheated out of my happiness. And that's when I knew that, things had to change in my life. I need to set up healthy boundaries with my parents so I wouldn't feel burnt out or feel resentful. And remember, when a parent gets upset with you with your answer, when you reject their demands, it does not mean that you've done something wrong. It simply means that your boundary is different than theirs. I just tell my parents, I know that you're disappointed in my response, but I'm going to do what's best for me, and I'll live with the oh, you're so selfish kind of bit, because you have to understand there's no need to negotiate, no need to over-explain, and or change your decision to, I guess, relieve the discomfort that you feel with your parents. And this way, if you do this, you can rewire your parents' thinking, hopefully, to not think that, their continuous guilt trips are going to force you to change your mind. Like my wife, for example, when we got married, she used to guilt trip me into everything, because sometimes we don't share the same interests. She wants me to go to, let's say, a musical with her, or some kind of theater. And, I don't mind going once in a while if I like it, but I don't want to go all the time. And it's not like I get her to go watch the UFC with me. So, I think, she's understanding that, there's times for us to be together, and there's times for, to have my space. But she used to guilt trip me all the time that all her friends are going to be there with their husbands, and my husband's not going to be there, right? And then I start to find out that the other husbands didn't go because they were saying the same thing. They said, "Oh, no, I'll never invite my husband because they'll be so upset and angry that they have to sit through this thing." And I agree. I don't want to sit through something that's like a few hours of pain, right? I'd rather get punched in the face in a cage or something like that. But anyways, I thought that was pretty funny. And, eventually we got to come to a mutual understanding, right? And it doesn't mean that you don't spend time with your spouse or significant other. Sometimes you have to just, bear the discomfort, of going to an event that you don't want to. But hey, that's what makes the relationship go round and round, right? So in closing, I think I'm curious to find out from all of you if you grew up being the responsible one, the one who figured everything out without asking for help. I want to hear from you. How hard was it to say no to your aging parents right now? And drop, a comment below. And if you like this video or like the content on this channel, please feel free to like, share, or subscribe. And feel free to check out my next video. All right. Take care, and I will see you next time.